Alright, so in this video we're going to be going over the production possibility frontier, or PPF. And that is a graph that shows what is the most efficient way of producing a certain amount of goods depending on the amount of available resources you have and how it's distributed between different options. So for example, in this case, say that you're a farmer and you have 80 individual ears of corn. You can either distribute it between either giving it to cows as food and you could produce beef off of that, or you could just sell the corn individually. What we have here is the possible options. You can either commit all of the corn to the beef and produce 8 pounds of beef, or you could save 20 individual ears of corn to produce 7 pounds of beef, or you could have 50 ears of corn left and produce 5 pounds of beef, have 70 ears of corn, produce 3 pounds of beef, or you could just commit all of it to corn and produce no pounds of beef. And when you connect these points together, they form the curve. This is the production possibility frontier. And what this shows is the most efficient ways of the farmer distributing out resources of the 80 individual corns that you have. So there are 3 different ranges in this graph. There is the inefficient, there is the efficient, and there is the unattainable. The inefficient and efficient are part of the attainable category, but they are quite distinct. So the inefficient is everything under the curve. This is where you still have resources left to use. For example, let's say that there's like a possibility over here. You saved 30 individual pieces of corn and you produce 2 pounds of beef. However, that's not the most efficient way. The most efficient way is when you use all the resources, and that is what this curve here is. So you have a lot more room to go up to the most efficient places. You could either you could use up the remaining 40 individual ears of corn to sell, and you could reach the inefficient spot over here, or you can convert the rest of the corn to beef and come up to here, or you could do a mix of both and reach another efficient spot on the curve. This is what you call a free lunch. This is where you could use more resources without experiencing a trade-off. So what a trade-off is, this happens when it's efficient, which is along the curve. This is when you have to sacrifice something in exchange for another. So for example, if I want to get from this point down to here, I would have to sacrifice 2 pounds of beef in order to get 30 more ears of corn, because this is at 27 and this is at 55. Or in exchange, if you want to go the other way around, you start from here to go over here, you have to use up 30 more individual ears of corn to get 2 extra pounds of beef. And the last section here is the unattainable. The unattainable ones are the values that you can't reach based off your current resources. That'll be up here, where you can't produce 8 pounds of beef with 50 individual pieces of corn left to sell. That is outside of the curve, and that is unattainable. What are some applications to this curve? Well, some of the best ways is to evenly distribute it alongside the middle of the curve. If you go too far to the axis, that is where it becomes impractical, because that's when you spend all your resources on just this one specific thing. Like for example, let's make another graph here. Let's say this is vaccine, and this is the rest of medical cures, and here's the PPF. For example, if you have a value over here, you could spend some of the money on vaccines and spend some of the money on the rest of medical cures. Just for the sake of this quick, the curve is based off of the possible ways you could distribute $10 billion in these medical cures or treatments. So if you have a value here, you could have a bit of vaccines and a bit of medical cures. And it's still possible if you're over here, because you are still spending some on medical cures and some on vaccines, but it gets impractical when you commit all of it to vaccines, or commit all of it to medical cures. So over here, the best ways is to have a bit of both, rather than committing all to one and losing out on the other. However, this could be committing to the very ends can be efficient if you are specializing in something, and that could help the overall increase in goods. But generally, if you're an individual, it's best to be around the middle rather than committing to an entire thing and missing out on the other.